when the Wright brothers, not too far from here, came up with the idea of an aeroplane, it created a paradigm shift. It brought humanity from a paradigm to a new one, which they never thought would happen. So a new transportation system like the Hyperloop would do the same, would bring humanity to a new paradigm. My name is Dhaval Shiani and I'm the founder and team captain for the Hyperloop UC team. I'm an aerospace engineer and I study computational fluid dynamics. And I want to be the one who constantly changes focus and changes his perceptions on whatever is going on in the world. So what Hyperloop is a new form of transportation that was proposed by Elon Musk, who is the founder of SpaceX and the CEO of Tesla Motors. So what the Hyperloop does is it will allow people to transport at insane speeds at 700 miles an hour between two cities. So it's a completely safe, green and fast mode of transportation. When you connect major cities in a matter of minutes, the flow of information, the flow of people, the flow of all the possible goods and services that can happen between the cities would just be phenomenal. When SpaceX announced the competition, we sprung to action and started gathering a team. So I was looking for people who are good at marketing, who are good at business, and who are good at design and engineering.
Dhaval was the one, full credit to him for putting the initial team together, because he was talking to his friends and said, hey, well, I know you're from this background, you're majoring this and that. We want people to work on specific projects, so we want you all on board. My name is Sid Tatham. I am the business lead of the Hyperloop team and a graduate student here at the University of Cincinnati. A friend of mine, Gaurav, I believe he was Dhaval's roommate at that point. He came to me and he said, hey, it looks like SpaceX is going to start a competition and he's putting together a team of people, and he said he wanted to talk to you about it to see if you were interested in being a part of the business side of the team. A lot of my work goes back and forth between finding people on campus who would support the project and talking to them about it, talking to students, and looking at what other teams are doing.
My name is Shaban Abdallah. I'm professor of aerospace engineering. I am the Hyperloop supervisor.
I had known Dr. Abdullah from my previous work on some of the research projects that we had done.
So they came to me and asked me if I would accept being their academic advisor. I said yes.
And then there were people on the team who were students under Dr. Abdullah.
The first time I heard was on a Facebook post.
I had actually seen the Hyperloop UC application on Facebook, and I was like, oh, this sounds cool.
I did not hesitate a moment. I just wanted to be in the team.
Recruitment at the very beginning was kind of like a startup sort of a thing. Students were talking among themselves with their friends. The first 15, 20 people are just happened to be Dhaval's friends who he spoke to. There came a point wherein we had to recruit people to work on the non-engineering side of it, and they said, hey, it's interesting, how much would you pay us? And I'm like, well, about that, something as big as this needs as much diverse perspective as you can get. College of Business folks were on the team, e-media folks were on the team, and of course, engineering.
People's first reaction when they hear about Hyperloop is they get kind of scared. Like, they don't want to go through a tube at 750 miles an hour. They just don't think it's going to be safe. But once we get to explain it a little bit more and give them some detail, then they kind of understand, like, wow, this is something that's like really cool. This could revolutionize the way we live every day.
Hyperloop is a big tube with no friction and no air to stop something from moving very fast in it.
How the system works is it basically takes solar energy and it converts it into the propulsion and the braking required for the transportation system.
There is no air in the tube. Because of that, there is no drag in the tube, and because there's no drag, you need very little energy to push the pod. Because of solar cells, all the energy that we are getting is the most green energy possible to get on our planet as of now. Hyperloop is going to be such a big industry that it is going to open job opportunities for millions of people.
The competition was divided initially into 3 stages. You have to submit a preliminary design briefing.
In this phase, we are trying to put up a lot of our designs into the competition so that it's easier for us to explain it to SpaceX what we are trying to do.
Right now, people see it as something that just seems like it'll always stay in science fiction. But the way to counter that is by showing them something that they can relate to. My name is Julian Gregory, and I'm an industrial designer on the Hyperloop UC team.
So one of the first things that we wanted to do before we started designing the project was focus on scalability.
Early on, we had just started focusing on some of the things like logo design. And my role eventually evolved into doing interior concepts for the pod. So I would think about how humans would get into the pod and what would their commute be like. We had brainstorms on bracket design where I would bring just some quick sketches that I had just thrown together with marker and a pen.
So whatever we are visualizing, they help us see that on paper and on CAD. Because if I say, okay, I need this stuff to be fitted in here, but then I'm not able to explain it to the other person, the designer helps me draw it out, and then I can easily explain it to other person.
People are in this tiny pod, and it's traveling 700 plus miles per hour, and there's no windows. How do people feel comfortable in that space? My original concept was this idea of floating comfort. Say they arrive to the Hyperloop station, their phone has their seating arrangement on it, and how they like their chair recline, and how they like the temperature of their chair to be. What Hyperloop UC is doing is something that has never been done before. It's a concept that was on paper just 5 years ago. Now we're actually building and testing what could be the next method of transportation.
There's a lot of work that lies ahead of us in terms of the money that we have to raise, and hell, in terms of physically getting this thing together. Sure, it's on paper and people have approved it, but we have to physically make this thing and put it together.
SpaceX said that it's going to be in June. So it was like 6 months to build the pod, and that was like a big challenge.
With the current design we had, we didn't think it was possible to test it within the time, and we had thought out on what to do, what we can remove, how to raise funds.
My name is Avery Griffin, and my role with the Hyperloop team is with the financing, fundraising, and marketing. A lot of what I'm doing is just kind of helping with the social media, how we reach out to companies, how we reach out to the community.
I actually didn't know how much we needed to raise. You know, they just kept on saying, hey, can you send out more sponsorship letters? Hey, can you do that? I'm like, sure. It was intimidating after that, but not knowing how much we need to raise was actually kind of better than knowing.
The companies that I contact, they really range. They could be anything from like restaurants to technical companies. So we could just be looking for a strict sponsorship where we might just get cash donations, or it could be a technical company where we'll be looking for testing time or materials and in-kind donations.
It's easy to send out a sponsorship letter and say, hey, you know, give us money, but building a relationship's much harder.
I am headed to the Smart Cincy Roundtable meeting right now. I'm not sure what exactly to expect because I don't have a whole lot of details, but then they invited Hyperloop to be a part of the conversation, so I'm like, sure, why not? Let's explore these opportunities and see where they take us. I try and attend as many meetings like these as possible, and I try and market Hyperloop UC. The more I'm out there, the more the other students are out there with the logos on, with the t-shirts on, the likelihood of people getting to know about the project is higher. Avery's going to be here hopefully in the next couple minutes. I'm not sure where Samantha is. I'm guessing she's on her way. Hey Avery, what's up? How are you?
Yeah, I found it all right. Our mission is to disrupt the disposal and nature of current water technologies while providing a more sustainable and environmentally friendly solution to the world's water treatment needs.
We did have some talking points planned, but I think that we're a little short on time. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you guys soon.
It was disappointing to not have had a chance to talk to people about Hyperloop. We kind of overshot with the as far as the time goes, and so we couldn't really get into the focus groups as far as we were involved. The meeting was not exactly what I thought it would be, but any opportunity that I get to tell people about Hyperloop is good. The more opportunities I have to do that, the better. There were a lot of times when we were nervous and we were all gonna make sure we did what we had to do, to get to SpaceX?
For the first couple of months, we were experimenting with electronics, we were experimenting with hardware, and also with the materials that would go on the pod. And the structures and other teams started building the brackets.
We were going for an active levitation mechanism, that was the hoverboards. And for that, we needed a huge battery system. So initially, we had 48 batteries on our pod, and that's what we started designing with. The thought of designing the whole system, working with all new components, was pretty exciting. That's what inspires me. We'll be designing something new. Like, that one statement was the thing that got me into electronics.
In general, life has been pretty busy these days. I would say, not just for me, for everyone on the project. Everyone has coursework, everyone has research requirements, and most of us work part-time too. So that kind of juggling act between the three things that we have to do makes things difficult for a while. So when we have to assemble the pod, it's pretty much a straight all-nighter session where we have our faculty advisor would bring in coffee, food and stuff, and we would work in groups, so people would sleep for a while in the shop and then go to the highway over on the other side of the hall and keep working on the pod. And then once their session was done, they would come back and the other group would sleep and repeat the same cycle.
At first I was like, I don't know if it's ever gonna happen. But then there are so many things in life which you don't think that they will happen. But then since we were a team of 30 by that time, I think if we divided the work properly, it was possible.
It was very interesting experience when we went to California.
There were mixed feelings, excitement, nervousness.
We had seen SpaceX on TV, we've heard about it, we've seen videos on YouTube, but to be at the SpaceX facility was pretty exciting for us.
So this is what the future looks like. And it is rare in our lives we get to feel that moment. Our problems aren't new as human beings, but the way that we're approaching them are. Today here at SpaceX and with Hyperloop, we are the capital of innovation.
We've got 800 students, 27 teams, some of the smartest engineering students in the world. Thank you for coming. Congrats to everyone. I'm amazed at what the student teams have done. Really has blown my mind, and may the best team win.
It's Friday, 3 p.m., first day of the competition. Students are pretty excited about being here, actually being here at the SpaceX facility.
Initial 2 days were just assembling the pod.
We had assembled everything on the pod, and we had tested a few of our systems.
There is a series of tests, 98 checklists, that we have to pass to get into the tube.
We tested our entire GUI with the pod, and everything was working fine.
Then we got a chance to see what the others had done.
The things that sets us apart are two things, I think. First of all, our levitation and stability system is completely passive. So we have no active components, we only weigh around 200-300 pounds. And then secondly, we have a capsule on top and actually house 8 half-skilled people as well. So we have a lot of volume.
What we have here is a micropod, which is a smaller version of what everybody else is doing. We want to build it as compact as possible, so it can fit in the luggage, and then we can bring it to America with us through airline. This is the rare chance for us to reinvent the new mode of transportation system in this century. We could be the Wright brothers in this moment.
I think something unique about our pod is our frame. We kind of went with an old school airplane wing box design that it uses very little power to actually operate.
We have a compressor, which is, I think we're one of 2 teams with a compressor on board. The team's feeling pretty good right now, and SpaceX just let us know that we will most likely be able to get on the big test track either tonight or tomorrow.
There was a huge around 98-point checklist that every team had to pass through before they were allowed into the final run, and we just got going at knocking off stuff from that checklist.
Before going to SpaceX, we didn't anticipate any problem. There were many things that we tested a lot, and there were many things that we didn't test much. The problem started coming in actuators.
On the 4th day of testing, when we were doing one of our functional tests, with one of the judges around, we realized that the actuator wouldn't retract.
They generated a lot of current because you're restricting them, and the current, it will want to come out, and then it goes where it goes to the electronics which is connected to the actuator, and it fries them.
Out of 8 motor controllers, we blew up 6 motor controllers. So we were just left with 2.
I was in shock when we ran into complications at the competition weekend. We were in desperate need to come up with a solution, or maybe come up with a new motor controller, or like design a circuit that would actually prevent the current from going to our electronics and frying them again and again. Those 2-3 days were very stressful. We wanted to just get it working somehow. My anxiety levels were peak high. I was not sleeping, not eating, and the only thing that was helping me was caffeine.
Since it was a very specific application, we tried to troubleshoot it as much as we could.
When our magnetic actuators fail, we had our friction actuators to actually let us continue in the competition.
By the time we decided of just going into the run with the friction actuators, many teams had already cleared majority of the tests.
And we did the vacuum test, and it was all fine. Everything seemed to work well.
Everything went well with the vacuum testing. I'm happy that our team got those things working even in that amount of time, but then it was too late for us. It was sad.
We couldn't beat the clock. We couldn't get ahead of schedule. You know, every single time a SpaceX representative would come by, we either weren't ready or we're still having difficulties.
It was too late. Like, we couldn't get on the external subtrack, because if we can't get on the external subtrack, we can't do the open air run, and then we can't do the vacuum run. Being at SpaceX, working for such a long time on something so huge, it was very depressing for us.
When you work on something for so long, and it's like you get attached to it.
We just simply ran out of time to do the one test that we had to do before we were allowed into the tube.
Our main aim was to send it inside the tube. That is where the disappointment lies. When there are 30 teams working for 1.5 years relentlessly on something like that, and they don't get a chance to do that, will definitely get you disappointed.
It was a sad time for us.
It was an electrical component, it's an engineering challenge, and things don't work well the first time. Even if you see the Apollo projects, not that I'm comparing this to the Apollo projects, but I'm just saying that if those guys can mess up, I'm pretty sure student engineers can too.
The judges were super impressed by the variety of teams, international. The sizes of the teams range from 4 to 60. One of my personal favorites is Kyo from Japan, who sized their pod such that they could fit it in their luggage in order to get into the United States. The trophies we have here, one are autographed by Elon. The team with the highest score. Remember the summary of the sum of all of the other categories, and that's Delft.
Although we didn't get a chance to run the tube, giving up was never an option.
Everyone wanted to work on the flaws that were there.
The best thing is to correct and move on.
I have learned so many new things in electronics components, in controls, that I had never thought about before. I really look forward to continue working on this.
It's so humbling, and it's good to see that so many people are working at the project, and we are all working towards one goal and trying to make it happen. So if this happens, it would be a really big thing in my career, and I guess the careers of all the people involved in this project.
We as students have had a chance to work on something as real as this. It does not get any more real than Hyperloop UC. The most rewarding part of the project would be the learning experience. Never been a part of something as big as this.
There are huge industries around Cincinnati. This can be a very good opportunity for Hyperloop and for Cincinnati to actually come together and do something good.
We as humankind, if we're not applying what we're learning, what we studied, what we observed to good use, there's that the whole process was, that was for nothing.
When Hyperloop as a concept was introduced, it was science fiction. And now that we have started working on it, developing technology and experimenting and proving that this works, it's science.